Alright, this weapon sucks, and that's not exactly surprising. The Straightsword Hilt is a useless starting weapon that you already have on you when you start a new character. It does only about 2 damage per hit, so not exactly a viable weapon. In fact, not even the red tearstone ring will help you turn the damage output of this piece of garbage into something useful. So how would you manage to survive the world of Dark Souls if you're only allowed to use the Straightsword Hilt as your only weapon? Well, let me show you. Create a new character and pick the Thief as the starting class. This automatically grants you the Master Key, meaning that we can pick the black Firebombs as our starting gift. So this way we don't even need a weapon at all to get past the Asylum Demon. Now of course, consumables will only get you so far, but they will get you far enough to turn the Straightsword Hilt into something that actually does damage. And no, it's not by upgrading it. We're going through the entire game without weapon upgrades or infusions. At Firelink, do the usual pickups. Some regular firebombs, homeward bones, and there are several souls to pick up. Level up strength from 9 to 10, so we can wield a better shield later on. And to get 1000 extra souls for free, aggro the Crestfallen Warrior. Which takes a lot of hits because it's damage based at what point he will start attacking you. But eventually he will become aggroed and he will start following you. And if you then jump across the gap to where you find the Ring of Sacrifice, he will automatically run off the edge to his death out of, well, sheer depression I suppose. And speaking of the Ring of Sacrifice, make sure to pick it up because it will play a vital role later on. And then go down the elevator to Anor Londo. Pick up another soul. And buy a sorcerer's staff from Rickard. Don't worry, it's only 500 souls. Open up the gate to the Valley of the Drakes with the Master Key. And there's another soul around the corner. Optionally, you can pick up the Dragon Crest shield, which will likely result in you getting killed by the dragon. However, I leave it behind anyway, because I will be using the Grass Crest shield instead. And as I said before, the red tearstone ring won't help you out in this run. So we're leaving that one behind as well. I know it sounds weird, but I will explain that later on. Grab the Grass Crest shield for the stamina regen, and it's still effective for blocking, even though it does not offer 100% physical damage resistance. And when making your way upwards towards the Undead Parish, make sure to grab the bow and arrows. Now, why would we need those if we're not allowed to kill anyone with it? Well, 2 reasons, and one of which is that we need a single arrow to draw the attention of one specific hollow in a minute. Get up to the Undead Parish, and optionally, if you want a 100% physical defense shield, you can also just buy one from Andre for 1000 souls. Make sure that you rest at the bonfire, and now we need to equip the bow and arrow. Because we are going to perform a glitch that's used by speedrunners. Which I am not, so I do it with a little bit less elegance. However, it's relatively easy to perform. Of course, it will take a little bit of practice to get the positioning right. In fact, I had to learn this myself in order to do this run. But don't worry, you will get it done. Fire an arrow at this specific hollow in order to draw his attention, and then run to the second pillar on the left of the staircase. Position yourself against the edge, bait a parry from the hollow, and riposte with your fist. Doing this in the right position will mess up the camera and make it stationary above you. It's very awkward to control yourself this way, but while the camera is in this position, run all the way to Sen's Fortress. Now if you do this incorrectly, the riposte will put you out of bounds and you will automatically die. So that will tell you very clearly that your positioning is off. All you need to do is keep running until you see the indication on screen that you've entered Sen's Fortress. Then of course switch your equipment back and quit the game. If you then reload the game, you will actually appear within Sen's Fortress even though the gate is still closed. The reason for that is because it wasn't loaded due to the messed up camera. So this means that we can now make our way to Anor Londo without ringing the bells of awakening. However, here's the tricky part. We cannot sit at any bonfire, and we still don't have a viable weapon to defend ourselves with. So we still have to rely on consumables, specifically firebombs of course, in order to defeat the Iron Golem. Now, the reason that we cannot sit at the bonfire is because that would mean that we are stuck. The gate is still closed after all. So the only way back is by dying or warping back using a Homeward Bone, Dark Sign, or dare I say, the Lord Vessel. But defeating ONS under these circumstances is not really recommended of course. So why are we even going this way in the first place? Well, just wait and see. Now, I assume that you already know how to run quickly through Sand Fortress, but just in case, I will leave the footage uncut and I will give some tips for certain sections. Although I'm not a speedrunner of course, I mean they basically run through here without stopping. I have to be a bit more careful, and I assume that that will apply to you as well. Wait until the serpent has thrown lightning and then run between the axes and simply iframe the next lightning bolt. Oh, and step on the switch so that the serpent boy knows that he is being a bit of a dick. Turn around and hold up your shield, because you cannot kill the serpent here, and then run as soon as the boulder passes. However, you need to have full stamina, so if the serpent hits your shield, immediately release L1 after that, so your stamina regenerates before you start running. The next serpent is blocking your way, but if you simply hit him once, you can run past him. Oh, but remember that the Straightsword hilt has 0 range, and yet it can still bounce off against walls. Yeah, From Software has a very peculiar take on how walls are supposed to function in this world. Oh, and don't hesitate at the next X trap, otherwise you might get hit in the back by a lightning bolt. Wait here until the giant throws one of his bombs, before grabbing the shiny over there. Otherwise he may throw it right on top of your head. Okay, we still have firebombs, but we need a few more. But fortunately, the vendor over here sells black firebombs. Now, 10 black firebombs together with the regular ones from Firelink should be enough. In fact, it's even possible with a few less. But actually, you might want a few more, because as you will see, I actually barely managed to make it. And given that you only get one shot, it might be better to play it a bit safer than I did. The crossbow hollow is blocking your way, but you can simply kill him by knocking him over the edge. Alright, here's how to deal with Iron Golem under these circumstances. Run up to him, dodge through his wind projectile, get underneath him and throw 2 firebombs at his feet. Don't lock on, point the camera down instead. Then get out of the way because he might grab you and throw another one. Unfortunately I missed, so that sucks because we barely have enough bombs. And then simply do it again. And now a third time. However, if he starts stomping, you might miss, so get away and throw another one. Which I also missed. But the next one should get him to stagger. Now keep throwing all of your firebombs, otherwise he will recover. And when I ran out, well, I simply finished him off with my useless broken piece of rust. But you know what? That's actually a good thing. Because in a way, we have now defeated him with the Straightsword Hilt. Well, sort of at least. Alright, do not forget that you cannot sit at the bonfire, so just immediately go down the elevator in Anor Londo. Ignore the Gargoyle, obviously, and immediately get upon the whatchamacallit leading to the broken window. Don't hesitate when going up the ladder, otherwise you will get a throwing knife up your backside. Okay, so our target is the chandelier. Of course, we're not going to swing from the chandelier here, but we are going to knock it down instead. However, the painting guardians are in our way. Fortunately, if you stand near the corner with your shield up, they will not follow the beams perfectly when they get close, and they try to move directly towards you, and thereby fall to their deaths. Yeah, I'm noticing a theme here. I guess everyone in this world suffers from crippling depression. Actually, that's pretty much canonical, if you ask me. Now for the last one, you can simply run and then jump immediately when pressing the left thumbstick to the right. Alright, now we need to equip Homeward Bones, but more likely it's the Ring of Sacrifice that we need to rely on. So definitely make sure to equip that ring. Because now we need to pick up the great magic weapon spell that came out of the chandelier that we knocked down. However, that means that we're going to get gangbanged by several painting guardians. Hence, the Ring of Sacrifice, to prevent us from losing the souls that we have acquired so far. Wait, what the fuck? All the way from there? Sure, from software, that seems legit. Well, anyway, get the spell and, well, get skewered. But that's alright. Well, as I've said before, with the gate in Sand Sword still closed, one way to get back is by dying, and due to the Ring of Sacrifice, we are automatically back in Undead Parish, but with 40,000 souls, and we have a great magic weapon. And why is that spell so important? Well, the Straightsword Hilt itself may do practically no damage whatsoever. But magic buffs add a fixed amount of damage based on your catalyst, which in turn is affected by your intelligence stat. So now we can use all of the souls we acquired to raise our intelligence and attunement stats, and we already bought a catalyst from Rickard. And that means that we can, well, let's just call the Straightsword Hilt like a container for pure magic damage. Meaning that all of our actual damage comes from the buff itself. So in that sense, we have turned it into a viable weapon. Of course, only when the buff is active. As soon as it wears off, you will go back to doing only 2 damage again. So that's going to be the tricky part of this run. However, there are ways of dealing with that as well. But first, since we are already here, let's take care of the gargoyles. And yes, that's still a mandatory boss fight, even with the sand skip. Because in order to place the Lord Vessel later on, we need Frem to appear, which requires us to ring both Bells of Awakening. Of course, do not forget to pick up the Firekeeper Soul. And since we can use Great Magic Weapon 3 times, make sure to use it before going up the stairs. We should only need 1 for the gargoyles themselves, so that even gives us 1 spare usage. Crap, everyone is following me. Okay, this is turning into a bit of a clusterfuck, so let's just make a run for it. Ah, son of a bitch! God damn it, now they're blocking my way. There we are. Okay, it's not the most elegant way, but we are where we need to be. Now, because we went to Anor Londo first to get Great Magic Weapon, rather than the regular Magic Weapon, plus a whole bunch of levels to put into Intelligence to boost the Magic Adjust stat of our staff, our damage output is actually quite decent. However, the weapon itself is still terrible to use, because you whiff with it constantly. You have basically zero reach, and sometimes even when you're touching a boss, you still manage to miss somehow. In fact, even though I had enough time and DPS to kill the first Gargoyle before the second one showed up, however, since I missed so many times, I couldn't actually get it done. And if you need to fight both at once, definitely don't use the lock-on, because you need to keep your movement as free as possible. Fortunately, when you only have the second one left, he will most likely mainly do his fire breath attack, which you can simply side strafe and then attack from the side or behind. And because he only has half a life bar, he will go down quite quickly. However, despite of all of that, only a few seconds after the final blow did the magic buff wear off. And that's obviously going to be a problem in later fights, meaning that's a problem that we need to solve rather quickly. But first ring the Bell of Awakening, of course. Homeward Bone back to the bonfire, then go down the elevator back to Firelink, and because the Gargoyles are dead, Lord Shrek is now at Firelink. So push him off the ledge, which is canonically the way he died, of course, and if you then quit and reload the game, the Ring of Favor and Protection will be where he was sitting. And then we're going to run through Undead Burg and make a stop at the Undead Merchant, and you will soon see why. But while I'm running there, the reason why the Fab Ring is extra useful in this run is because I will be putting all of my levels into Intelligence and a few of them in Attunement. Now, having said that, you don't actually have to do that. This guide is aimed at non-tanking strategies and maximizing damage output. But of course that doesn't mean that you have to do that as well. You can also choose to go for a lower damage output and put levels into Vitality and Endurance and simply wear heavy armor so you can tank a lot of hits. That's up to you, of course. I'm simply going to level my intelligence stat all the way up to 60, which is the hard cap, so that will be the maximum damage output possible. Together with one extra buff, but that's something for later on. First we need to deal with the fact that Great Magic Weapon is only active for a short while. So what we need is the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring that extends the time that our magic buff is active. Moreover, it's also helpful, in fact pretty much required for the fight against ONS, to have regular magic weapon as well, as a backup, given that we have limited uses. Both of these things can be acquired from Griggs of Vinheim, and in order to free him, we need the Residence Key from the Undead Merchant. Now of course, don't be a dick and just buy it from him for 1,000 souls, instead of killing him in order to get it for free. Yeah, I know I'm killing him, but I am a dick, so that's different. Then continue onwards towards the ladder and make sure to clear away the 4 hollows in front of it. Now climb to the top of the ladder, but don't move, turn the camera around and gracefully roll onto the ledge down there. Okay, fuck me, let's try that again. Okay, so gracefully roll onto the... Motherfucker! Okay, again to the top of the ladder. And roll onto that ledge with some motherfucking grace. Oh nice, first try. And then run up against the wall and then push the thumbstick right and immediately jump. This is a quick way to get to Lower Undead Burg. Especially helpful if you either can't or don't want to do the sand skip. Because this allows for very early access to regular magic weapon. In that case it would likely be a suicide run, but in our case we can in fact take care of the dogs and the hollow thieves. But keep in mind that you have 0 range with this weapon, so make good use of your shield. Block and then counterattack. Of course dogs can still randomly jump all over the place, so fuck them. There's never really a good way of handling dogs. Meh. Alright, open up the door with the residence key. The master key doesn't work on this door after all. Free Griggs and Homeward Bone back to Firelink.
Brilliant. Thanks.
There we can buy the regular magic weapon spell from him. But of course the other thing we want from him is the Lingering Dragoncrest ring, which extends the duration of spells. Unfortunately, we do not have enough souls, and it's a whopping 20,000 souls. However, not to worry, we now have access to a guaranteed way to get that exact number, namely by killing the Stray Demon. And also let me demonstrate why we went to Anor Londo first, because as you can see, even with all the levels that we already put into intelligence, regular magic weapon is significantly weaker than great magic weapon. However, it is helpful to have as a backup, or simply to use against regular enemies when you want to save the great magic weapon uses. Alright, approach the crumbling floor from the exit side, not the bonfire side. And after dropping down, immediately get into the corner. This allows us to heal from the fall damage and apply our magic buff without the Stray Demon noticing us. For some reason, even though the floor fell down. Well, whatever. Now I assume you already know how to fight the Stray Demon, but let's focus on a couple of things to keep in mind. You always want to attack him from behind, but his explosions reach slightly behind him. So move away when the explosion happens and then immediately back again. Also, his tail sticks out, so that's a much safer target. And keep in mind that when he does his giant butt slam, he has a lingering hitbox when he smashes down, so don't get close to him too early. Also, his catalyst is part of the hitbox, so you can in fact get squashed by it, even though you aren't underneath the demon itself. Now our damage output is decent, but not all that great, and since we're doing this fight in order to get the Lingering Dragoncrest ring, our spell isn't active for that long, so you will have to reapply it. And that's obviously the dangerous part of the fight. Fortunately, this boss is quite slow and there are a lot of save opportunities. Specifically when he flies up to do the butt slam, or when he does the overhead explosion. But not the quick sideways explosion attack, because he recovers quite fast from that, so that's not very safe. Alright, now we have enough souls for the Lingering Dragoncrest ring. And he also sells the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring, but that ring will not strengthen buffs, so it's useless for this run. However, he also drops the Slumbering Dragoncrest ring when he dies. And we're going to need that ring for later on. And he has served his purpose already.
Perfect.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah. 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 Alright, so now we have something to extend the duration of our magic buffs, but we will also need something to increase our actual damage output. Now, as I've said before, the red tearstone ring is useless in this run, and the reason for that is because it doesn't increase the damage of any buff that you apply. So that means that it would only give us 10 extra AR. Not even 10 extra damage, merely 10 extra AR. In other words, the extra damage from RTSR is applied pre-buff. Fortunately though, that does not apply to Power Within. So that will in fact give us a significant damage boost. Of course, we don't have a Pyromancer Flame yet, but we can get one from NG, or however you pronounce his name, after beating Quelaag. Now of course, if you would really want to get it before Quelaag, you could go and defeat Capra Demon and free Laurentius from the depths, and he will also give you a Pyromancy Flame. However, Quelaag will be quite doable without Power Within. Of course, we first need to actually get it, and it's quite a ways up from the bottom of Blighttown. So it's not likely that you are not aware of the route you need to take in order to acquire it. So allow me to show you the easiest way to get it. First set at the bonfire of course, not only in case you die along the way, this is Blighttown after all, but we need to return here anyway, so this allows us to homeward bone back after we get Power Within. Now, I didn't bother getting any purple or blooming moss, but I would advise you to simply farm a few of those in Darkroot Garden from those plant enemies. Otherwise you will have to go through this area while being poisoned, and if you get toxic on top of that, your death is pretty much guaranteed. Fortunately, you will notice that suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, I get purple moss. And that's because if certain enemies drop down to their deaths, you automatically get those, even without having to pick them up. No idea why that is, but it's definitely a good thing in this case. At this ladder, stay to the side, because an enemy is programmed to come down it. So wait until he does, kill him, and then you can continue. Now the reason I two-handed my weapon is because in my practice run I didn't bother applying Great Magic Weapon. So instead I just knocked him over the edge. In fact, given that the spell will run out soon anyway, that will in fact be my go-to tactic to begin with. Once you get up the next ladder, there's one of those toxic blow dart enemies. But you can just use the most powerful force in this world to take care of him. Gravity. And hey, as annoying as Upper Blighttown is, it's actually quite satisfying when you can use the way it is constructed to your advantage. Alright, after you've taken out all of the enemies here, it is safe to attack the wall insect from behind. However, make sure that you don't push yourself forward too far, so do single attacks, otherwise you will automatically push yourself forward. and then the insect can actually still attack you. So make sure that doesn't happen, because you do not want to have to do this all over again. Okay then, now we have power within, might as well attune it already, but of course we cannot use it until after beating Quelaag. Fortunately I got some purple moss from those enemies, so I can fight Quelaag without being poisoned or being forced to wait until the poison wears off. And in case you weren't aware of this, you can actually avoid the giants at the edge of the swamp by approaching the path towards Quelaag from the right. None of the giants will get aggroed that way. Quelaag is quite resistant to magic, so our damage output isn't all that great. But fortunately, the Straightsword Hilt does at least have the benefit of being a fast weapon. So because of that, you can stack some pretty good damage, especially when the spider is doing the long-lasting fire spitting attack. Of course, keep in mind that he can also do a short version, so don't let that catch you off guard. Stay away from the stomp attack, and if you move along to her side, often you get some free hits in when she is turning along with you. For the sword attacks, dodge for the first two, and then she follows up with a stab. So get to the side of the spider's head, because the stab attack cannot hit you there. And of course, always be aware of your surroundings in this fight, because it takes quite a while for the lava to disappear again. And always watch out for when you see Quelaag herself move downward to grab the spider's head and pull it upwards, because that is the indication that the giant AoE attack is coming. So that should signal to you, get the hell away from her. Something that makes no sense animation-wise is that some of the lava that the spider spits can suddenly move sideways. Makes no sense, but keep it in mind for how you position yourself when attacking her from the side. Now, even though our buff will last a lot longer now, I don't want it wearing off, catching me off guard. So what you also can do is push right on the D-pad to switch out your weapon, and then back again, and that will nullify the buff, allowing you to reapply whenever you want to. You cannot reapply it when it's still active in this game, after all. Alright, ring the second bell of awakening and then get to the first Demon Ruins bonfire. Before we can get a pyromancy flame from NG, we need to get infected. So let's aggro one of these egg infected guys and then allow them to grab us. If you then get bitten, it will take 5 minutes before you get an egg parasite yourself. So in the meantime, we might as well get rid of Caesar's discharge. You are probably aware of the lore method of killing him, but in case you are not, here's how to do it. Run all the way up to where his sister's cloves are, and when you pick them up, he gets aggroed. Wait until he swipes one of his tentacles, and then make a run for it, and keep running all the way up to the fork wall. When he jumps, there's a hitbox on the left side because of one of his tentacles, so I prefer to roll just to be safe. And then all you need to do is hit his hand a couple of times, and he will automatically die from gravity. Well, it is the strongest force in this universe after all. Alright, now we need to talk to NG, but before he can give us a pyromancy flame, we need to join the Chaos Covenant and then wait until the egg parasite has hatched.
I pray that you...
If you talk to him now, he will not only give us a pyromancy flame, but also an item to cure the infection. After all, not only is it terrible fashion, but the parasite will actually steal half of our souls that we acquire. So we definitely want to cure ourselves.
Incidentally, if you have served
Also, make sure that you don't actually use Quelaag's soul. Instead, when you make it all the way back up to Firelink's shrine, give it to Framd, because that will actually give us more souls. Also, the Hemlock set that we picked up can be sold for 4000 souls. Or if you want, you could wear it, as it has good defenses and low weight. Given that we have now rung both Bells of Awakening, we can go through Sen's Fortress the regular way. However, this time going through it, we need to make sure that we free Big Head Logan from his cell. And an easy way to get access to him, without having to move the device that triggers the boulders, is by having the Serpent break the wall for us. If you attack him, and then block while positioning yourself in between him and the wall, when he does a stab attack, he will actually break the wall for us. However, keep in mind that he may actually follow you all the way up towards Logan. So don't try to free him until it is safe. There's also a soul that you can pick up in the other cell. And you don't need the special key, because the master key can actually unlock these cells. And while we are here, we might as well pick up a couple of black firebombs again. Because there's one more part in this run where they will be very handy to have. Okay, since we already lowered the second tower in Anor Londo, we can immediately continue onwards towards Ornstein and Smough. Of course, along the way we have some demons to avoid, who can be pretty annoying, as I am sure that you are well aware of. So keep in mind that you don't roll too early if they do a jump attack, because that one is very delayed. And turn your volume up so you can hear if they shoot lightning at you. However, having said that, it's very hard to hear in the first place, and even the sound of the arrows from the archers can prevent you from hearing it. So it is unfortunately kind of an RNG heavy area. I didn't apply magic weapon, but you can also simply parry the Silver Knight twice, and that should knock him off the ledge. Crap, stupid camera. Okay, maybe 3 times then. Oh, okay, that works too, I guess. A little less elegant, but with similar results. In case you were not aware of this, there's a way to skip most of Anor Londo, and it also serves as a better run back to ONS if necessary. If you make a very specific jump from the staircase, you are immediately on the walkway leading to the entrance hall of the cathedral. Okay, here we run into a slight problem. We obviously do not want to buff after going through the fog wall, when Ornstein might be ready to immediately charge at us. But we cannot safely do it outside of the fog wall either, because of the 2 sentries that might attack us from behind. And we also don't want to buff before approaching the fog wall, because we want power within to last as long as possible. We can only use it once after all. So what we're going to do is enter the fog wall and then do a save quit. If you then reload the game, you start outside of the fog wall and the 2 sentries are back at their starting positions. And aren't even aware that you are there, as doing a save quit automatically de-aggroes any enemy. And that allows us to safely use Great Magic Weapon and Power Within before entering the boss room while wasting as little time as possible. Meaning the buffs are active for the longest time possible. After all, this fight might take a while. And unfortunately, I did not do this fight flawlessly, but then again, you actually don't have to. Even though we haven't leveled Vitality, for any level that you gain, you do gain resistance. So we are vulnerable, but we're not that vulnerable. A few mistakes are in fact allowed. Now I did not have the most favorable start, the one where Ornstein charges at you. Instead he did the lightning stab, which you also can roll through and counterattack. But of course the problem with Ornstein is that at basically any time he can dance around, and especially since we have 0 reach, that makes it very unlikely that you will actually hit him. Now the main thing in this fight to always keep in mind is to not use the lock-on. You need to keep your movement as free as possible. As well as having manual control over the camera, as it is easy to lose track of Smough since you're trying to kill Ornstein first because of the easier second phase. Even though you feel under pressure because of Power Within, sometimes you need to not risk counterattacking because of Smough. To an extent you can use the pillars to separate them, meaning Ornstein will go left around it for example and Smough goes right. Regardless, Smough is faster than he might look, and at any time he can do the shoveling charge attack, and that covers a lot of distance. Now the biggest problem with this fight under these circumstances is reapplying your buff, because it's very hard to tell when it's safe to do that. And in fact I reacted way too late and therefore I took a hit. Now I did create distance and got behind the pillar, but I waited until after Ornstein did the lightning charge attack. So I was still in the animation when he then followed up with a lightning bolt attack. So I either should have done it before he even charged to begin with, or I should have waited for the regular charge attack, since that is a longer animation. Now, something that's kind of unfair in this fight, other than the fact that Ornstein can stab you right through the pillars and even right through Smough himself, or can get stuck behind him and then almost randomly dashes all over the place when he gets unstuck. But his two-handed stab attack, where he follows up with an upward stab, is an immediate hitbox. So it's not the stab animation itself when the hitbox becomes active, which is how it should have been. It's the entire animation, including him raising his spear backwards to get ready for that attack. Now, fortunately, the upward stab that he follows up with can quite safely be punished, because he recovers quite slowly from that. Alright then, the second phase. And when you have a low damage output and are not allowed to make a lot of mistakes, there is an easy way to deal with the super version of Smough. If you create some distance between him and you run up to him, he will very likely do a jump attack. So if you keep running, it will go over you and you can get a few hits in. No more than a few though, as he will likely follow up with the electric butt slam. However, keep in mind that he is not guaranteed to do a jump attack. It's most likely to happen if he is running as well, although not exclusively. He can also do a sideways hammer attack, which is a large hitbox but at least still dodgeable. But what you really need to watch out for is when he does the shoveling charge attack, because that's a giant moving hitbox and you are running straight towards it. So if you don't immediately recognize it and turn around, the fight will likely end there. You can also do it several times in a row. In fact, I almost got killed because I got stuck at the wall in the back at one point. On top of that, I really got sloppy and I actually stopped running too quickly at one point, which caused Smough to land right on top of me. Kind of surprising that I even survived that. And I'm really happy that didn't happen when I did my SL1 NG+7 Cestus only run, where I couldn't make a single mistake and where the fight took 20 minutes. Because that would have been a disaster of biblical proportions. But fortunately, as I said, we are weak because of low vitality, but our resistance from all the levels we put into intelligence makes us more resilient than you would initially think. So it's not required to do this fight without any mistake of any kind. Now we have the Lord Vessel, we get access to the Duke's archives, because that's going to be our next destination. Because there are 2 more ways to increase our damage output. A new staff and crystal magic weapon. Since we have freed Big Head Logan from Sen's Fortress before, we can now free him again, but from the Duke's archives this time. So unlike what I usually do, I'm not going to do the Duke skip this time. Although I actually could be wrong about that, but I believe that it's not possible to access the jail without getting captured first. Because the key is found in a chest in that area. So we're simply going to run to the first encounter with Seath and allow him to kill us. Well, it's not like we have a choice because he's still immortal at that point. Only thing to watch out for, of course, is that you don't get cursed. And if you really want to make sure that doesn't happen, you can either trade a twin humanity with Snuggly the Crow for a rare ring of sacrifice, or get one in the room beyond Rickard in Sen's Fortress, or simply by purchasing a purging stone from Oswald of Kareem in the Gargoyle's bell tower. Alright, the Crystal Knight is in our way, but simply push yourself past him. Or maybe not. Okay, let's try that again. Son of a bitch! Ah, come on, there should be enough room. Yeah, you know, maybe it's those crystals on the left, so let's try a little further back. Do it, seriously? Okay, you know what? Let's just lure him all the way back then. Dude, will you just get out of the way already? Okay, that's better. I guess they used this as inspiration for Dark Souls 2 level design. Oh, damn it, now even the tiny crystal lizard is blocking my way. Seriously, the only thing more annoying would be like, I don't know, a boss that you can't even kill. Oh, wait.
"12 seconds later."
Alright, for some reason the weakest enemy in the game is the one guarding our cell, so even the Straightsword Hilt by itself will one-shot it. However, once we leave the cell, the alarm will sound, causing all the Pisacas to rush upstairs. That's a bit of a problem. But actually, there is an easy solution. If you use a Homeward Bone or Dark Sign, you will warp back to the bonfire in this cell, as we're supposed to be stuck here. However, the alarm will then be off for some reason, and given that the cell door is already unlocked, it won't go off again. Meaning that the Pisacas will stay where they are. Regardless, we will still have to fight them in order to save Big Head Logan, but that's simply a worry for later. First we need to get the key to escape this area, and then find the key to Logan's cell. Now, even though I did apply Great Magic Weapon, I tried to get the key without engaging the 3 serpents on the upper platform. And that's kind of a mistake, as you will see, because trying to get the key while also trying to avoid 3 enemies at once, 2 of which with jump attacks and 1 with ranged attacks, that turns things into kind of a clusterfuck. Okay, almost didn't make it, but I made my way down the ladder with the key. Oh crap.
Raindrops are falling on my head.
Well, we had to go back upstairs anyway, and we do at least have the key now. Make sure to immediately head for the stairs, because 2 of the serpents are designed to go and guard the door leading out, even when the alarm is turned off. Quite interesting design though, that when you escape your cell they send the Pisacas upwards with the music, and also have 2 serpents guard the door to make sure that you can't escape by going up the ladder. But this way we are there before they even arrive. Alright, before you go and do the whole stairs turning business, it is safer to first sit at the bonfire. That way, if you happen to die along the way, you won't have to restart from the bonfire back in the cell. But after that, we do have to unlock the secret passage first. Not only because it leads to the second encounter with Seath, but that's also where we find the key to Logan's cell inside of a chest. And we definitely want to have crystal magic weapon and a more powerful staff before we fight Seath, because keep in mind that we basically do pure magic damage. And Seath has very high magic resistance. He is the father of magic in this world after all. There's a reason why magic is associated with crystals in the world of Dark Souls. And if you wonder, is there no way to do lightning damage instead? Well, technically yes. If you kill Gwendolyn, you get access to the Sunlight Blade Miracle. However, that requires 30 faith to use, and you can only use it one time. So in my opinion, it's not really worth the time and effort. And if you know what you're doing, Seath is still manageable with a low damage output. In fact, my fight with him was not even that well executed to begin with, and had some bad RNG, and was still quite doable. And fortunately, Seath is really the only boss we'll encounter with very high magic defenses. Okay, so now we have the key, it's time to free Logan again. However, we still have to deal with the Pisacas. Now, they do obviously attack you when you get close. However, they will not follow you. They can move slightly past the line on the floor, as you will see, but they will quickly try to get back. So this is something that we can use to our advantage, because there's a whole bunch of them. So what I do is that I attack once or twice and then move back to the safe zone. After all, when you try to attack one, another will try to attack you. So it's better to play it a bit safer. In fact, Pisacas have quite a bit of reach, and you have practically none. Moreover, rolling away will not even always get you out of their reach, as you will see. Now you can actually still stunlock them, even with this weapon. So I played even a little bit too careful, but then again, can you really act too careful in the world of Dark Souls? Not really, right? The two crying Pisacas in the back are actually not hostile, even when you attack them. And I believe the lore reason is because these creatures are mutated women who the channelers captured for Seath's experiments. And these two are just on the edge of being fully mutated, but they still have their human consciousness intact. It's really quite sad, especially because we have to kill them. Come to think of it, I didn't have to kill them because we don't need the spells they drop anyway. Well, whatever, life sucks. So, now we can free Logan, and there's also a Firekeeper soul in this cell to boost our Estus flask. You encounter Logan again in the room on the left beyond the secret passage. And you can even buy another regular magic weapon. And yes, they do stack, although not on the same attunement slot of course. However, crystal magic weapon is rather expensive, but you can get some easier souls from feeding stuff to Fremd, especially humanity. Or if you want, you can simply do a bit of farming. However, after purchasing crystal magic weapon and attuning it, there is one more thing we want, his crystal catalyst, which he drops when he dies. And he has served his purpose already. Yeah. This catalyst adds quite a bit more magic damage than the standard sorcerer staff, as I show here by the difference in AR. However, it also has a downside, as it halves the amount of your spell uses, and it runs it down, so 3 becomes only 1. However, not to worry, if you equip both catalysts, you can switch between them, as you don't literally lose the amount you have, just from having the crystal one equipped. So in essence, you can first use a strong version of crystal magic weapon with the crystal catalyst, and then a weaker version using the regular staff. And the same applies to great magic weapon, of course. Now that does mean that you have to sacrifice your shield, but hey, you cannot have everything, right? Alright, so now it's time for Seath. And as you probably know, when you first enter the boss arena, it's highly likely that one of the shells has entered the arena as well. And if you see my other DS1 guides, then you know it's pretty much a habit at this point. Because what I do is that I break the crystal and then do a save quit. Because that will place any shell that might have entered the boss arena outside of the boss arena again. And because of the fog wall, they won't be able to enter it again. However, the crystal remains broken, so Seath is immediately vulnerable when you enter. Moreover, because I basically always do this, I am simply used to fighting Seath from this side of the arena. Because as you probably know, Seath's most dangerous attack is the giant crystal explosion, which covers the majority of the arena. Meaning that you can get stuck against the wall without enough space to avoid it. And this way I know I can run back to the fog wall once before he moves. And when he moves, I can run around him and there's enough space behind him. And if you have bad RNG where he moves forward a lot again, the space near the fog wall will become safe again. However, what I try to do is to get him stuck in a loop, but unlike in my SL1 NG+7 Cestus run, where I basically had almost a perfect loop going, things didn't turn out that well in this fight. So if you want to see it executed better, then you should watch that video. But the basic idea is this. Seath can do his crystal breath forward and sideways. And the loop I try to create is where I bait the forward attack, meaning I can basically steer right and approach him diagonally, get a few hits in and move back again where he follows up with the sideways breath attack. And then rinse and repeat. And if he moves his head down and holds his hands together, that means he's charging the giant crystal explosion. So I can then immediately run and keep running to stay out of the blast zone. Unfortunately, I had some bad RNG and he even started doing the tail swipe combo that he's supposed to do when you get to his side or behind him, even though I was right in front of him. So I definitely did not see that coming. In fact, I literally never saw him do that ever before when attacking him from the front. So that's actually pretty weird. Alright, so I run up to him and I wait for the forward crystal breath. However, when he then followed up with the sideways breath attack, I should have run back. But for some reason I already chose to run around him. Unfortunately, he then went ballistic with his stills and I got stuck against one of the crystals at the edge of the arena. So that almost went very wrong. But then I moved further back so I could be sure that I would be out of reach of his stills. Wait, what? That looks questionable. Okay, let's just say don't underestimate the reach of his tail and imagine that it's even larger than it actually is. Anyway, so now I try to get the loop going. It's not really about getting him to alternate between the forward and sideways breath attacks though. It's perfectly fine if he only does the sideways one. But the point is that it's best to approach him from the front, so you can at least see and respond to which of the two attacks he does. I'm actually a bit too far to the right in this fight, so that's not really the best position to be in. But what is very important is to pay close attention to when you see him charging the giant AoE. Because you don't have that much time to get away from it. It's quite unreasonably large. And that also means that you have to pay attention to how far he moves forward. Because you need enough space behind you. So if you think you won't have enough space, you need to move immediately around him when he does the AoE. And of course remember to simply keep running until you're sure that you're out of the blast zone. Also, make sure that you hit his actual body and not his tail. He takes reduced damage when you hit his tail. And your damage output is already not all that great. He might sometimes attack with his arm, but that's a slow attack and very easy to roll through. You can immediately counterattack afterwards. So here he suddenly went ballistic with his tails. Again, he's not supposed to do that when you are in front of him, so that caught me completely off guard. If you look carefully, my last attack pushed me really far to the right, so I suppose that is what triggered him to do that attack. One last thing to mention is what I said before. I have 2 staffs equipped in my left hand slots, so I have both the benefit of multiple charges and the extra power that our new catalyst provides us. But that does mean that your attack power will decrease the further you get into the fight. Especially because power within will obviously not last through the entire encounter. And magic damage is simply not the best choice against Seath, but it's obviously all we have to work with. Okay then, the magic resistant boss is down. And next up is Pinwheel and Nito. Pinwheel is, well, he's Pinwheel. And Nito is quite weak to magic. And by now I have 48 intelligence, the crystal catalyst, and crystal magic weapon. So that means that even the Straightsword Hilt will do really good damage. Although one problem remains against Nito, and that's not the boss himself, but the respawning skeletons. We don't have a divine weapon after all. Now of course you could try to tank them, but given that I haven't leveled vitality and endurance, so I can't wear heavy armor, in fact I don't even wear a full armor set, that's simply not going to happen. Moreover, that's simply not the strategy I'm going for to begin with. So remember the slumbering dragoncrest ring that we got from killing Griggs earlier on the run? Well, together with another ring that we will acquire very soon, that will give us a way to deal with the immortal skeletons. But first we need to make it through the Catacombs and defeat Pinwheel, which actually can be done rather quickly. So in case you weren't aware of this, I will show you a sort of self-invented shortcut. Well, not by me obviously. But what I mean is that I doubt that From Software themselves designed the Catacombs specifically to be traversed in that particular manner. At least that's what I think. Or hell, maybe they did, and that would be pretty awesome actually. Okay, first get to the bridge and make sure to block the skeleton's attacks, because you need practically full health for this. And you also cannot hesitate, otherwise the necromancer will hit you with a fireball, or a skeleton will jump at you the moment you fall down. And then you will die from fall damage, as it is percentage based in this game. So whatever your vitality, with about 90% health or so remaining, you will survive the 2 drops down to the bottom. And no, it's not safe to heal in between the 2 drops, because of the exploding floating skulls that might happen to be in your vicinity. The point is that you cannot know that beforehand. However, then the biggest problem are the bone wheel skeletons, who can drain your health in a second or 2. Very RNG heavy. Try to move as fast as you can. You can also kill them from the ledge with firebombs, although that can be tricky since they can be right underneath you, and then you cannot hit them while locked on because of how the camera will act. Doing a safe quit halfway towards the fog wall might also help. Alright, for Pinwheel I don't think I need to give any advice, it's not going to be a problem. Well, other than the fact that he might be hard to hit when you have 0 range. Okay, then let me just say one thing then. Whenever he does a long jump backwards, whether the real one or a clone, he will shoot a fireball. Yeah, I suppose that you don't know Pinwheel's actual moveset if you've never fought him with both a low damage output and where you die in one hit. Regardless, this type of run is not like that to begin with, so whatever I guess. Oh, and when you kill the real one, when he's in his death animation, the clones can still shoot fireballs until victory achieved appears. And then they will disappear as well. By the way, if you have trouble traversing this area in the dark to the next bonfire, here's a quick way to get where you need to be. In fact, there's even a slightly quicker method that speedrunners use, but the way I will show you will be sufficient. Alright, as I said before, there's one more ring that we need in addition to the slumbering Dragoncrest ring, and that is the Ring of Fog, which you get from trading the Skull Lantern with Snuggly the Crow. And the Skull Lantern can be found in the pit where Patches kicks you into. So just talk to him and let Patches do what he does, and then after picking up the Skull Lantern, just homeward bone back to the bonfire. Then warp back to Firelink Shrine, and then go back to the Undead Asylum via the Crow's Nest. Okay then, now we have what we need to face Nito without having to worry about his immortal skeleton minions. Of course, the downside to trading the Skull Lantern is that we have no light source to help us getting through this dark area. Not to worry, the road is actually quite simple. First, just follow the wall on the right, but be careful of the giant skeletons along the way. Now, it is better to dodge them instead of blocking them, but given that their attacks can come seemingly out of nowhere, keep your shield up just in case you react too late. Then, after going through the first fork wall... Oh crap, what the hell? Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Well, just continue forward. Actually, this way you avoid the second skeleton altogether. So it's actually an accidental alternative. Okay, back on track. Another giant skeleton to avoid. Just stick right. Now turn left and go down the ladder. And then stick to the right wall again. And that's all there is to it. You're in the light again. Don't worry about the tower skeletons, just keep running and they won't attack you. But be careful that there are two archers behind the third one. But again, just keep running and at the end go left, so there's no danger of getting hit in the back. Then stick left again and go as quickly as you can through the fog wall, again to prevent getting hit in the back. Alright, so now we're at Nito, but given that we have to wear both the Ring of Fog as well as the slumbering Dragoncrest ring, that does mean that we have to remove the Fab ring, which of course means breaking it. So because of the two rings that we are wearing, as long as we don't get close to the skeletons, they won't even know we are here. Nito will, because he's a boss, but if we wait until he approaches us, we can avoid the skeletons altogether, and we just have a one-on-one fight with Nito himself. Problem is that there is RNG involved. Twofold. One is the sword attack that comes out of the ground. You can literally start off with that if you are unlucky. And I dodged that based on a visual cue, not on sound. And Nito is hardly visible at the start. I will show later in the fight exactly how to dodge that move. But secondly, Nito actually needs to decide to approach us. And yeah, he doesn't seem to be in a hurry. Okay, this isn't really going anywhere. Don't worry, if you do a save quit, you can simply re-enter the boss arena and hopefully we get some better RNG. Because here's the thing, it's actually best to not move at all. However, then you cannot see the sword attack coming. But you also cannot move too far forward, because then you will still trigger the skeletons. We aren't literally completely invisible to them after all. By the way, I did equip both of my staffs, but Nito is so weak to magic that you will likely won't even have to reapply your buff. So the Crystal Catalyst is enough. Okay, damn it, we have the same problem again. Okay, well, bad RNG can happen, so that's actually not a problem for this guide, because bad RNG is also something you need to learn to deal with. So let's first identify the problem here. As you can see here, for some reason Nito decided to move to the right and he got stuck against one of the giant skeletons in the back. So standing over here is not going to work, because he will just keep walking in place. So we're going to have to be very careful and lure him towards us from the other side where the small skeletons are. So our movement has to be rather precise, because we need to lure him over without triggering the small skeletons. Alright, he is moving towards us. And here is how to avoid the sword coming out of the ground. Pay close attention to his right arm. Right before he stabs his sword into the ground, he raises his arm just a little bit further. And that is your cue to roll. Okay, lure him a bit further, because we need a lot of room to avoid his AoE attack, on both sides if necessary. Fortunately, fighting Nito one-on-one is really easy. His hitboxes are kind of wonky, but in your favor. Even when you think you dodged way too late, you still tend to avoid his sword slashes. And when he does an overhead attack, he leaves one of his legs exposed, so you can actually attack him from behind. Normally you cannot do that because of his cloak. When he does his AoE, just run far away from him. Of course, don't get near the giant skeletons in the back. So you need to decide which side to run into based on where Nito is positioned in the arena. Meaning if he gets too close to the giant skeletons, run the other way around. And if he gets close to the smaller ones, run into the opposite direction. And that's basically all there is to this fight. Before leveling up, first buy the Crest of Artorias, so you can be sure that you can actually afford it. And then it's time to basically just finish the rest of the bosses in order to complete the run. In essence, we have done everything we needed to do in order to turn the Straightsword Hilt into a viable weapon. So all that is left is to acquire the final Lord Souls and defeat Gwyn. So all I can do at this point is to give some general tips for the remaining bosses. Seath probably won't really pose a problem. Not only is he very weak to magic, you can stack quite a bit of damage due to the fast attack rate of this weapon. Now be careful that when he swings his sword around, it's a double hitbox. So push yourself underneath him to avoid the second swing. In general, underneath him is the best place to be, although he has a weird hitbox when he jumps away. But that's only really a problem when you cannot take any damage to begin with. And another thing he can do is that he jumps away while attacking with a sword. And that can happen very quickly. So whenever you see him try to jump away, make sure that you roll. That will always be the safest thing to do. After the fight, make sure to pick up the Hornet Ring, because we are going to need it against Gwyn, of course. Alright, other than the Covenant of Artorias and the Ligman Drancrest Ring, make sure to equip both staffs again, because we're going to turn this into the 3 kings instead of 4. It takes a short while for the first king to appear, so use Power Within as soon as you hit the... floor? I guess? Wait, what? Why is Power Within grayed out? The actual fuck? I can't cast it for some reason. This is not good. And how is this even possible? I have the Pyromancy Flame equipped and the normal staff on my left hand, so it's not removing my single use, and I still cannot cast it. Okay, I suppose that was some sort of a weird glitch, so, well, just try again, I guess. Yeah, weird things happen in this run for some reason. Well, anyway, as I said, we're turning this into the 3 kings, because especially due to the fast attack rate of this weapon, we can stack some really good damage during each king's death animation. But something to watch out for is that you do not want the spell to wear off during the actual fight. So I'm going to put my weapon away after each king to reapply my buff. And that way I can be sure that it will not wear off at an inconvenient time. Okay, well at least it's not grayed out anymore, so quitting the game did help. But that was really weird, and I have no idea what caused it. Now I actually was a little bit sloppy against this boss. I took some very preventable hits. Remember that even though you are dealing with a time limit, you need to keep your cool and don't try to do things too fast. When he does an overhead attack, you don't need to roll necessarily. However, I waited too long before side strafing, so I actually got clipped by the sword. And later that happens again with the sideways attack. And the reason for that is because when you are this close, you are dealing with a larger hitbox. Meaning that the sword has a larger hitbox near the hilt than near the end of the blade. Which actually makes sense based on the shape of their swords. However, it's actually in both directions, no matter how they actually hold it. So I guess it doesn't make sense. But it does mean that you need to keep in mind that you don't dodge too early when you are practically touching the kings, because then you will be simply out of iframes before you are out of the hitbox. When he did the grab attack, I could kill him in the nick of time before he could actually grab me, but for the third one I had to dodge it. Now, you could dodge it by immediately running away, but that's not the most practical way of doing it. Instead, I prefer to release the lock-on and then run and roll past him. Now, the reason to release the lock-on is because the tracking is really extreme on that move. So rolling sideways is likely not going to work. I actually did have some good RNG in this fight, no magic attacks at all. But if you want to see a more intense yet better executed version of this fight, watch my SL1 NG+7 dual Cestus run, although I had to use the giant blacksmith hammer on the 4 kings instead of the Cestus because of the time limit. But in that fight I not only couldn't take any damage, but I also had to deal with all of the magic attacks. After defeating the 4 kings, you can actually pick up the gear of an NPC, the witch Beatrice. Well, that brings back memories. However, if you wondered whether her staff would be superior to the regular sorcerer's staff, well, unfortunately, no. They add the exact same magic damage. It looks a bit cooler though, but other than that, it has no benefit. Demon Fire Sage is practically the same as the Stray Demon. Only difference is that the room is different and the Fire Sage jumps backwards a lot. When the fight starts, run up to him, and if he does an overhead attack, you need to dodge quite late, because that attack has really strong tracking. Or keep running if he does an explosion attack. Of course, just like the Stray Demon, watch out that he has a lingering hitbox when he does the butt slam attack. And unlike the Stray Demon, he can jump backwards into a corner. Now, if it happens that there is really no space for you to avoid the explosion, you can use your shield, but remember that you need to turn around before holding your shield up, because the explosion will come from behind you after all. Other than the fact that I don't have the stats to wield the catalyst that he drops, it has poor magic adjust anyway. The whole thing with that catalyst is that it doubles as a weapon which does fire damage. But it's a relatively poor choice for spells. The annoying thing about the Centipede Demon is the arena. It's much easier to fight him in the corner, but that means going through the lava twice. However, you can actually iframe the first gap, meaning that you take no damage when you roll. And if you roll twice for the second gap, you will only take damage once. Then wait in the back until he comes close. However, he tends to spam his stretchy arm attack if you keep standing against the wall here. And the whole point is that we need to get him out of the lava. So when he gets close, move a bit towards him until he does his jumping roundhouse attack, because that will automatically position him forward. Now watch out when you're underneath him, because it can be hard to see what he does because of the camera. He can do a grab attack, a jump attack, or another jump attack where he roars before he does it. And that's a dangerous attack, because he will then throw a fireball down when he jumps. So you need to be even further out of the way. Fortunately, he will go down very quickly, so in my case he didn't even get the chance to do more than a single grab attack. Right before the Bed of Chaos, we encounter one of the Daughters of Chaos, and she drops the Isolate Staff. Unfortunately, just like Beatrice's staff, it adds the exact same amount of damage as the regular Sorcerer's Staff. It's not like in DS3, where you can use it to make a viable pimp build. Alright, something I should have learned years ago. In fact, I should have included it in my Soul Level 1 guide, but instead I turned it into a clusterfuck back then. Now, in my Cestus run it was a lot better, but this time around I finally nailed the Firebomb cheese tactic. However, it is very difficult to explain the visual cues. So all I can say is that you need to stand on the line between the 6th and 7th tile on the ground. And it's easiest to simply use screenshots to look at on a separate screen. Now it does require some practice, because you have very little time between throwing the first firebomb and aiming for the second. If you hesitate, the boss will attack you before you can throw the second bomb. We are now about to finish the game using the weakest weapon in the game. Hey friend, what do you think of your chosen one now? Are you impressed?
You should be proud of what you've done. It's just that it's kinda gay.
Alright, time to finish the game. Now there is optional stuff left of course, but this is just an any percent run. However, if you do want me to show you how to deal with the DLC bosses with a low damage output and on top of that not being able to take a hit, then check out the playthrough that I mentioned a couple of times already, my Soul Level 1 NG+7 Dual Cestus run. The link is in the description box and at the end of this video. And speaking of not taking hits, I also have a link in the description box to a YouTuber known as That Cool Black Dude, who did an actual no-hit run using only the Straightsword hilt. And he didn't even use black firebombs on the SL1 Demon, and he also didn't use the Sense Skip to get Great Magic Weapon early. So that's pretty damn impressive. Make sure to check out his video as well. Alright, time for Gwyn. A problem when it comes to using Power Within is that you don't have enough time to do it after entering the fog wall, and if you do it outside of the fog wall, the Black Knights are a problem. So I use it before I even encounter the final 2 Black Knights. Not to worry, it will last long enough to take Gwyn down. And if you are unfamiliar with how to parry Gwyn, you can actually manipulate his AI by drinking Estus. So we'll use it even if we don't really need it to heal. Because drinking Estus has a very high likelihood that it causes Gwyn to do his slow two-handed attack, and that one is very easy to parry. Also, you don't actually need to worry if he happens to do his fast attack, because you can immediately parry the follow-up attack. It will not one-shot you, and you will be drinking Estus afterwards anyway, hurt or not. And another thing is that even mistiming your parry won't necessarily be a problem, as you will see. I actually only discovered this in my Cestus run, but it's probably common knowledge. For some reason, the parry animation itself can cause Gwyn's sword to go over you, or whatever the logic behind it is. So even if you are a little too early, you won't necessarily even get hurt. Now of course you do need to watch out for his grab attack, because that obviously cannot be parried. And there we are, Dark Souls with the weakest weapon. Make sure to also check out my Soul Level 1 NG+7 Dual Cestus run as well. And of course I have a whole bunch of other guides for Souls games, Souls likes and many other types of games. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. And if you want to, you can support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching and see you again next time.
My lord, bless thy safe return. Let Garth and Fraft serve your highness. We are here to serve your highness. Let true dark be cast upon the world. Our Lord hath returned.